Hey, Steve Stine here from Guitarzoom, and today we're going to be looking at 4 ways that you can improve your guitar soloing, namely focusing on the blues. Alright, so the first thing I want you to understand is anytime that you're soloing over a particular kind of backing track or a groove or whatever, you need to try and make a connection with the rhythm. So the first thing we're going to talk about is connecting to the groove. Now, if we think about we don't need to get overly crazy at this point. We're just trying to do something that's more interesting than just going, just kind of moving up and down. And so one thing to do is to start really trying to think about your phrasing, trying to connect more with the music that's being played. So if we look at this, and let's say I was going to take this idea here of just this minor pentatonic at this point. And what I want to do is I want to start chopping that up into little pieces and then moving around. So instead of just going just up and down like that, what I want to think about doing is chopping this into bigger and littler pieces, just, you know, anything that's different. And I'm going to play something small and then move somewhere else. And all of a sudden, it's going to start sounding a little more like music. So if you think about, again, this can meet you anywhere you are in your guitar journey, but let's just say you were just focusing on that first position of A minor pentatonic, for instance, and you didn't really know anything else. You can still take that and start trying to make it more creative with the way that you're playing by thinking about how long your phrases are and by starting and stopping in different places. Okay? And then also, don't make everything that you're playing just a sequence of playing the exact same thing up and down the fretboard. Think about jumping around a little bit. Like if you do something lower, then move up and do something higher. Okay? Just trying to break those up a little bit. And they could get even smaller. And always think about stopping too. That's another thing is when you're playing phrases, the way to make a phrase sound like a phrase is to completely stop playing. Have the strings stop vibrating entirely. That could be a phrase. Okay? So that's the first thing is really trying to focus on your phrasing, okay? How long or short your movements are. And then also, kind of in that same realm, is trying to think about moving to different places within the structure of the position that you know, like the first position, for instance. Don't just play everything sequentially. That's the key. Okay? The second thing I want to show you is as we start developing that a little bit, what I want you to start doing is trying to utilize what I always refer to as the human elements, which are the things that we can use on guitar that makes it sound more real, more like a voice. Okay? And for us, those would be bending, vibrato, hammer-ons, pull-offs, and slides. Okay, those things are really, really crucial. And again, you don't have to use them all at once. You don't have to use them all the time. You don't have to try and, pack everything into a small amount of time. It's just trying to learn how to do them authentically. So when you go to do a bend, being able to execute that bend comfortably. And then what I could do is follow that bend up, for instance, with maybe a phrase. And as you're watching this, you can stop the video and just grab something. You don't have to use all of this, but if you see something and go, hey, I like that idea. Like I remember the first time I learned how to do double bending. For whatever reason, when I was a kid, it never occurred to me to be able to do something like that. It was always single bend. But as I got older, I don't remember where it came from, but learning to think about that, just little things like that. The next thing would be vibrato, being able to tag some of the things that you're playing, like toward the end of a phrase, with a nice vibrato, right? And a vibrato is just that slight shaking of the string, and you can decide how wide you want that and how fast you want the vibrato, but learning to add that makes for a nice ending of a phrase, or maybe a single note. Now I'm going to add in some sliding with the vibrato to show you the slide as well. So I'm going to slide into my root, which is the A, and I could slide back out again, and that could be a phrase, just something nice and simple like that. Another thing I learned how to do a long time ago was to play a note and then slide into that same note, and it just sounded really cool. So oftentimes, some of the things that really make the biggest impact on your playing, they're not just how fast can you play or how much theory you know, and again, don't get me wrong, those things are important. But it's the subtle elements that you might be missing in your playing, and that's what I'm trying to show you in this video, is just to start thinking about some of those. Not all of them. Like if a lot of this information is new to you, a great thing to do, again, is to stop the video and just go practice. I've never tried to play a note and then slide in. You know? Now, you don't have to do it all the time, but it's a nice thing to get comfortable with. Or sliding into a bend. And then adding some vibrato or whatever the idea might be that works best for you. So, again, tip number one is really trying to learn how to phrase in different sizes. Think about it like sentences, larger sentences, smaller sentences. And also to break up the monotony of just playing up and down, trying to move around a little bit. The second thing is adding in these human elements, okay? Bending, slides, hammer-ons, pull-offs, vibrato, that sort of thing. Okay? There's so much power in just that. If you could learn to phrase a little bit, and you can start adding in those elements. Now I'm staying strictly pentatonic at this point, but we're going to be changing that in a little bit here, okay? Think about it like singing on the guitar, and sometimes maybe even scat singing. Okay? The next thing we're going to do is we're going to start learning how to move around the fretboard to start kind of manipulating the rest of the fretboard. Now, in order to do this, you have to have some knowledge of the other positions. Now, I have a bunch of different videos that you can watch in learning these positions. So don't get overwhelmed with this, but the more confident you are with your entire fretboard, the more you can get creative all over the place. You don't just have to stay in one spot. So, for instance, if I was playing in this first position, I can utilize the idea of sliding to start moving me around the fretboard. Now again, the note selection that I'm doing is I'm still staying straight pentatonic, so there's nothing overly exciting happening there yet. But this gives me a nice ability of being able to move and start kind of exploring other positions on the guitar. Now, I don't always have to slide in and out. I can physically pick my fingers up. However I like to do this, but what this is now offering me is the availability of not only moving around, but when I move to other positions on the guitar, the notes obviously switch order, right? So as I'm playing, oftentimes I develop a kind of a movement that's comfortable for me as I move across the strings. And now that all those notes are in kind of a different order, it sounds a little different, okay? It also forces me to think a little bit and even slow down a little bit as I play. Okay? So as I do that, of course, it's nice to try and learn where some of the notes are. Maybe I need to kind of learn where my A's are. So I have some different places to try and target in my phrasing. And you can notice that a lot of the things I'm talking about right now, some of these things require practice themselves. So again, you might wind up stopping the video and going and studying something else and then coming back. Okay, so that's the third thing is learning how to manipulate and utilize the entire fretboard, or at least more of the fretboard than you're using right now, because you can really come up with some great, unique things that actually could be quite fun for you in moving around the fretboard that way. Okay? And then the last one is learning how to add other sounds or other pitches or other tones to the scale that you're using. Now again, you might already know a lot of these things and that's great, but I'm just going to show you some different things to think about a little bit that make your solo sound a little more unique and certainly in this case a little more bluesy, a little more rock and roll. Okay, so if I was to take this traditional pentatonic here, the first note that I like to add in is what we call the blues note or the blue note. And what that is it's the flatted 5. Now again, it's okay if you don't know what that is. Basically all I'm going to be doing in the pentatonic here is going up 3 notes pentatonically, and it's the next available note. Now that note exists between those 2 notes of the pentatonic. So it's sitting right in the center there. And you'll notice just by listening to it, it sounds a little more unique because it's adding in some chromatic elements, right? I can see I'm playing 5, 6, and 7 all together. And plus it's adding in these half-step elements. So I've got, movements here I had. This is what we call a step and a half or a minor third. This is called a whole step or a major second. Well, now I've got these notes right here, which is breaking up that sound. Okay, and I can add that in other octaves. For instance, this note right here, which is an E flat, is also located right there on the 3rd string. So I can do this. And I love to use this blues note right there as like little slides. I might slide down or slide back and forth. And it sounds really, really cool. And you can notice how that's changed the sound of that pentatonic significantly. Now again, you don't have to use it all the time in every phrase that you do, but it sounds kind of cool. So we've got those located all over the fretboard, and of course, maybe that's another video I should get into, is trying to add it into every other position on the fretboard. But for now, that'll work. So let's add in some other notes that are kind of cool to, again, get a bit more of this blues sound as we play. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add in some other chromatic sounds. One I like to add in is right here. Okay. So I'm playing 5, 6, and 7 on this 4th string here. Now, if you know anything about your theory, I'm playing the minor 7, the major 7, and then the root. Now, I'm not really using these in a functional sense in terms of the minor and major 7. I'm just using it in a chromatic sense, which again just adds some more color to the solos I'm trying to create. Okay? Some other notes that really sound great to add into this is what I always refer to as the minor and major 3rd twist, which really adds a lot of blues element into your playing. And you can learn to play these in other octaves. That way, if you wind up in your 2nd position, there's my blues note, right? So you can play those all over the place. So as you learn more and more of these notes that you can add in, you don't have to add them all at the same time. Oftentimes I tell students, try and write all these ideas down. Like if you've got, let's say you've got 3 or 4 or 5 ideas that you really like from this video that you want to try. You write down those ideas on a piece of paper, and then as you're doing your traditional practice, you look at that paper and you go, okay, I'm going to try and add that in. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, you stop the backing track or whatever it is that you're using, and you just practice that over and over and over. How, I understand what the note is, but how am I going to play it? How am I going to go into it, right? If I wanted a blues note, how am I going to go into that blues note? Well, I could do that. I could move toward the floor, right? And do it as a slide, or I could pick it with my pinky, or hammer it, right? There's a lot of different options, but I need to be aware of that. Or if I'm moving toward the ceiling, I might just try and practice that a little bit, just getting used to using this one blues note in this one position. Maybe everything else I do is straight pentatonic, but I'm just adding that one thing right there. Start adding it down to here. You see? You just keep kind of exploring the fretboard as you go and see what you can do with it. So that's another note that's really great to add in. And then you can look at some of these other chromatic notes. Let me show you this as I play. I'm just going to kind of move across the fretboard, and again, you can stop the video or whatever and kind of watch this. I'm not going to play fast or anything, but if I start doing this... See how these... I can use those to move into this position right here. There they are again. Okay, and then these are an octave of those. You see, so as I play... That's another one I like to use is on this first string here. 5 and 8 would be pentatonic. I'm adding in that 7. And there's all kinds of these ideas. Again, I just want to give you a few things to try and explore and see if you can come up with your own stuff too, or at least implement some of the ideas that we're talking about into your own playing. But the goal is, or the path to being able to do some of this stuff, I should say, is to do it slowly. Like, don't try and tackle 9 things at once. Just try and take a couple of little ideas and start learning how to add them into your own playing. Because oftentimes we're sort of drawn to, you know, so many things. We're like, oh, I want to try and do all this stuff, and that's great. But you just have to learn to do a few of them at a time. Even if it's just something as basic as, you know, we forget how important bending and vibrato and that sort of thing is. We all understand it, but that doesn't mean we're all really good at it. And the trick is to get to a point in your playing where when you execute a bend or a vibrato or something, it sounds really good, right? You're confident with it, and your attack sounds great however you want it to sound. So whoever your listener is enjoying what it is that you're doing. So if you think about the first tip, it's really just shaking things up, right? Trying not to do the same thing, making your phrases larger or smaller, whatever. Moving around the fretboard a little more creatively. Then we add in these human elements. That's the second thing. The third thing is we start exploring more of our fretboard. And then the fourth thing is we start adding in some of these unique sounds. And even, again, if you just take a little bit of each one of those things, I think it'll benefit you a lot. So take care, stay positive. If you're looking for any further education, obviously you can check out my other videos on YouTube and head over to guitarzoom.com and see my guitar courses. So take care, stay positive, and I'll talk to you soon.